week's episode of Everything Went Black podcast. Karl and I bring you another installment of Darkness Reviews. We're moving right along coverage of the great Karl Edward Wagner. And we're rolling through the final Kane novel called Darkness Reviews. Before we get into that, I want to shout out the rest of the lads of the Horsemen podcasting podcast. We give it our best. Hell, we give it our all. Combat mediocrity in all its forms. Kicking things off every other month, we got Brandon Engines, All Wolf 666. Next Tuesday, Jackie Smith brings us into the news. Wednesday is the first day of double shows. We got Black as well as Endless Manifestation, brought to you by Cheyenne of the great band Tribe. Thursday, as well as being Necro Thursday, where you can listen to the brand new weekly episode of Necro Movies. You can catch day one of Soul Knots, brought to you by today's co-host, Karl and I, for all things dark, mysterious, esoteric, and macabre. Friday brings us Spitball Media. Saturday is a day off. Summer's winding down. So it could be the last days in of summer, the fall, around the corner. Sunday, Karl returns with day 2 of Soul Knots. And if you're listening to this episode, I don't have to go into this project that we're working on. But 2 weeks, Karl going through all this stuff. It's a lot of fun. I think that some of you guys have been able to be exposed to the good writing all the way back. If you like the show, much appreciated. It's a labor of love. However, though I enjoy doing this, there are some inherent expenses. So if you want to put your money where your mouth is, you can join Everything Went Black. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to the bonus episodes. For $5 a month, you get access to the bonus episodes, plus early access to the regular shows. And for $25 a month, you can become a sponsor. Kane was one of the first true men, born into a hostile world of strange ancient beings. In this dawn world of humanity, Kane defied the insane God who created his race, an experiment that had turned out far from the Creator's expectations. This demented elder god dabbled at creating a race of mindless creatures whose only existence would be to amuse and delight him. He almost succeeded until Kane rebelled against his stifling paradise and spurred the young race into independent will. He killed his own brother, who sought to oppose his heresy, thus bringing violent death as well as rebellion to the infant mankind. Disgusted at the failure of his depraved design, the god abandoned his creation, and for his act of defiance, Kane was cursed with immortality, doomed to roam this world under the shadow of violence and death. His blighted wandering will cease only when Kane himself can be destroyed by the violence to which he first gave expression. And to distinguish Kane from the rest of mankind, who he renounced, are his hellish eyes, killer's eyes, the mark of Kane. Welcome back, Karl. We're heading into another episode of Darkness Weaves, our exploration of the work of Karl Edward Wagner. And we're moving through the novel Darkness Weaves, which we've pulled the title of this collaboration from. So it's kind of fitting that we're this being the final novel of the Kane saga, that we've used that to entitle this collaboration.
Definitely. And it as we'll get as I kind of texted you, like I feel like this novel is interesting because it acts and it was the final novel he wrote, but I don't think it was necessarily intended to be the final Kane because he did write Kane's short stories
Yeah, there's
after
short
it. But
stories after this. Yeah.
what's interesting is that there is a kind of feeling of like either A, this is be a very good first place for somebody to start because there's a section later on where you get like these kind of flashes through Kane's life, right? And all these different things. And so many of them relate to the stories we've read. And like these just little flashes. And if you hadn't read the stories, you just kind of go, okay. And then later on go, oh wow, that was like referenced in Darkness Weaves. But there's a whole different thing if you've read all the short stories and now you're getting into this is like the final novel. Um, Gives it kind of this weird sense of like finality or something weird to it. You know what I mean?
This is my favorite section of the book that we're going to be talking about tonight. Just for that reason, where it comes later in the episode, we'll talk about it, but it kind of gives you like the true real deal about who Kane actually is. It explains it pretty pretty much definitively like who he is, because like throughout if everyone who's been following this thing throughout our whole journey through these stories, there's a lot of legend, a lot of conjecture about who he actually is, and like tall tales about him. Even in this story, like they mostly think Kane was like this pirate, but we've learned, Ephraim learns that who he truly is. So it's a really interesting part of the book.
Yeah, and I mean it lines up with other things that we've learned in the past. Like there's definitely been sections, like say in Reflections of the Winter of My Soul, where the werewolf relates the kind of story of Cain, and it's pretty close. We've gotten like pieces, so but it's really, and we've gotten like little bits of it, and like Bloodstone and some of the other things, but this one really like lays it out like very clearly and concisely. You know what I mean?
In some ways, I feel like this was the whole point of this novel, really, is to tell that aspect of the saga. Because, gotta be honest, the story is you've heard it all before. The story is like in some ways almost like a rehash of some of the other plot lines that have been out in his other stories and novels too.
Yeah, well, even like some of the story beats in this section we're gonna talk about remind me of stuff that happened in Dark Crusade, for example.
Yeah.
But but it might be part of the point of it, though. I think there's an aspect to the whole thing that Kane's life is like this endless cycle of doing the same thing, essentially the same things over and over again. You know what I mean? And different permutations.
This last time I read through this, the image that came to mind was at the end of Mad Max. I think it was either Mad Max or the Road Warrior, where they show Max. It was the Road Warrior, yeah, where there's a shot of him just standing sort of out in the distance, and the camera's like pulling away from him, and they're just like talking about how he just didn't know, disappeared into the horizon, and no one ever heard from him again, and he almost achieved this like mythic quality about him. And I feel there's something about the Kane stories and this reading it through this time because so much of like what people perceive of him is a legend, and it's a result of storytelling and half truths and recollections of things that happened years and years ago. Yeah, I don't know. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, he's definitely, and he wanders off, and a lot of times we get him coming back to places where he's like destroyed many years before, and we know we're in the ruins of a city that he destroyed, like
Yeah, like hundreds of years ago,
yeah, even thousands. But
thousands of years. Yeah.
yeah, the it's just a really interesting meditation on that these kind of cycles or permutations of things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's also a quality to it that reminds me of if you think about uh Robert E. Howard's one Conan novel, Hour of the Dragon, which is most people know as Conan the Conqueror. That was written for a British market that hadn't really read any Conan stories, so Howard, felt pretty okay about like essentially kind of at times recycling certain things from his old stories. But it almost becomes like this awesome like journey through as Conan goes to kind of like really consolidate his crown finally at the end. It's also like him wandering through his past in a way, and I think it gave me a similar feeling that some aspects of this does, where it's like you're getting not only are you getting insight into the character, you're also kind of, and for somebody who's never read anything, they can get a kind of overview, but it also acts as kind of like for the character itself to kind of go through the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get into what happens during this part of the book. So the chapter that we're starting with is chapter 13, Two Enemies Meet. And in this chapter, Maril meets up with his with Lagis, who was he imprisoned in the dungeon. And his daughter McCory is there's a love affair between these two. And Lodgy's father was Maril's, they had this conflict about who was going to, take the throne. So he murdered his father, Lodgy's was imprisoned, and now he's been released, and yeah.
Yeah, because his father was it Leon, I think his name was, right?
Ryan,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, who consorted with Ephraim about taking over the crown essentially from Merrill, and we've been wondering why Merrill has not killed Lages because Lages wasn't involved, and we kind of find a little bit of why he's also, because really they are the two last like scions of this race and of this line essentially.
Yeah,
So in a lot of ways, Merrill needs to keep Lages alive because he needs an heir. You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
there's an interesting manipulation that goes on here too, which has to do with Lagis is sworn to avenge his father and to kill who, the who caused his father's death. And obviously you would think that Maril would be that target because he literally put Land to the sword in a fight. But so I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here, but there's a little bit of a manipulation that goes on. So I find that really interesting. Some like statecraft here.
yeah, well, basically, essentially, Merrill has found out about, Cassie's return. Merrill has found out that Ephraim is somehow still alive. And he manages to kind of convince, in some ways rightly, that the real culprit for his, Lagi's father's death or Lane's death is actually Ephraim, you know, because Ephraim was the one who convinced him to go against Merrill. And if it hadn't been for her, then none of that would have happened, which I think is true. I do think that she kind of set some type of spell on Leyan to manipulate him. I think that's actually partially true. So it is a manipulation, but it's also somewhat true. You know what I mean?
It's definitely true. But this kind of it's like that's like the thinking man's way of looking at the situation. But like a more coarse, barbaric way of looking at it was literally that, Maril killed Leahy's father. So obviously he's the one who has to get slain. However, we learn that Leahy's doesn't actually fully abandon that mindset. So
Yeah, Merrill does basically kind of manipulate him to join him in the fight against Ephraim, But yeah, at the end of the chapter, Lages kind of still goes, well, it's still very possible. Once I kill Ephraim and then I wed McCory, then I'll kill Merrill. That's kind of his plan right now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the plan. So, you know, they join forces, they put aside their blood feud, and Lagis is to lead the Imperial forces against Ephraim, who has like a a rebellion right now, which Kane is in charge of. And we find Kane, on brand for him, fighting for the bad guys at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And um yeah, they don't have the full fleet yet, but they're going to send what they have in the Imperial place, which I think is like 25 ships or something. Um and then they go, "Oh, Meryl's like, "Well, let's bring Cassie out so we can get all full information." And then we get a thing that they found Cassie dead, and the next chapter is essentially um how Cassie died. And it was yeah, like some type of lady of the night
Yeah, some lady of the night came in and poisoned him. So
with her fingernails.
they were fingernails. She's got
Yeah.
poison on her fingernails. So
Yeah.
so he's out of the picture now. Cassie's, history. Yeah.
Which kind of surprised me. I actually thought that he was gonna be you know,
More of
a
a
bigger
player in the
part.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then we get the next chapter is McCory and Laggy's like standing, awaiting to go. And it's kind of interesting. Laggy's has some very like I pointed out the last episode, he has some mixed feelings, I think, about McCory in a way. Like at the end he says it says like, you know, feeling keen desire to possess her and at the same time instant a longing to be free of her,
Yeah.
feels like this kind of mixed feelings about her, and I think
Yeah.
it's because she's very, very clingy. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. McCory's all in, but Laggies is like, I have to go out and be an adventurer, and he's like looking to get out and, do some adventuring.
When I think too that McCory is very much a little smothering, in her affection in a way. You know what I mean? Which for him at least, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then you got to remember too that she had him literally held captive for what was it, 10 years or something like that. Or how
I
long
don't
was
think
he in the dungeon? I don't think it was 10 years. It was a period
I,
of
was-
time.
I think it's only been a couple years since
Yeah.
since the attempted. I've kind of figured out that it hasn't been that long. I think it's only been a year or two since the
Okay.
attempted.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah, it's only 2 years. So he has literally been in the dungeon for say 2 years.
yeah, off and on, like because he kept like being an
Yeah,
idiot,
yeah, exactly. So she has had him held captive and she has been, visiting him. And it's just like, it's that kind of relationship, like you were saying, very smothering because, she would come down there and visit him. And that would be obviously he'd be happy to see somebody like her. But if all things are even, all things are equal, I don't necessarily think Laggies would be as enamored with McCory.
No, but also maybe there's an aspect to it as well that there's maybe a little bit of strategy in his mind too.
Oh
Like,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
if he marries his first cousin and he's got full stranglehold of like the whole thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a political aspect to it.
Yeah, that's what I think too. But then the next chapter is really, yeah, this is where it's at. Like we find out about cut deep into the basalt beneath Daglef lay the secret chamber of Ephraim. This whole section like talking about the secret chamber is awesome.
Yeah. Well, even the title of the chapter is awesome. Visions of the Black Prometheus.
Yeah,
That's a pretty sick title name, if you ask me.
yeah. And this is when um we get so she's like basically summoned this demon who I guess is kind of like her demon familiar that she's kind of got trapped in a pentagram. Uh and she's basically trying to get information about Kane and yeah.
Well, what's interesting about the demon is they call it a demon, but then they also make mention that a some sort of like creature from another dimension, which is like all the demons and gods in this world is,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, the prism of humanity refers to them as demons and devils and gods, but the reality, it's like in a Lovecraftian way, it's like they're just other beings from a different dimension or some other aspect of reality that we can't see or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, they're and this one sounds like somewhat demonic, but yeah, there's different classes. There's all these different unseen entities that or dimensional creatures that exist in this world. And some of them are what people call gods, and some of them are lesser spirits or, lesser entities. Um it's a very interesting system, which I like quite a bit. I like the way that Wagner's kind of basically saying that everything exists in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it even leaves open, and I mean we'll get into that right now. Actually, is it leaves open some of the the legends like Christian legends and things like that. Maybe there was like a story that morphed into the legend of Cain and Abel or something like that.
Well, Cain is quite literally the Cain from the Bible, essentially. But the twist is that Jehovah, his creator, is like some mad alien god from
Yeah,
like like he's not like the creator of everything or anything. He's like this kind of like individual entity who calls himself a god who's like decided to create, mankind essentially. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And
exactly.
man, and so in this, he did this. God created men, and men are actually just this twisted. Like the other entities always describe men as like these twisted, like things from the derangement of this mad god's mind. You know what I mean? Like we're like really seen as like kind of like lesser than in some ways.
Yeah. Well, so the demon sort of gives this like waking dream, and that's how Ephrel sees all this stuff. It's like these imagery of all of Cain's exploits, and you can read these different aspects of the stories that we read, and they come through, and she's able to see almost in like images of him doing all these things, all the pretty much
Yeah,
most of the highlights of his life are presented to her. And then, finally, there's a section where we see his actual origin, you know?
yeah, but yeah, and we get like let's see, the first one. I forget which story this is. It's the one where it's him and that girl, and they're running through the ruined play. I can't remember which. There's one. It's one of those stories. There's another story which is the one with the vampire lady.
Yeah.
Um, there's one where he's fighting a demon. Um, with a naked girl bound to a rock. Now, some of these I don't think were actual stories. Maybe they're story ideas that he had,
Yeah.
that he never got around to. But um, we get another one. Trying to. I think there's one where the
The
werewolves
werewolf one. Yep.
reflections. Yeah. We get let's see. We get like back to him being in Carsuthiel doing magic with like a chained girl in the corner as he does all this magic, and we also get at some point in time when he was a king of probably during Carsuthiel, he was on a immense throne of obsidian, his crown of unfaceted jewels. It's pretty cool.
You know what, man? I would love, it's probably way too after the fact, but like, how there's a lot of pastiche writers that pick up the Howard stories? How sick would it be for someone to do, like, someone with talent to do, like, further Kane stories?
Yeah, it'd be cool. And you could take some of these things that weren't actual stories. I mean, obviously, next we get Bloodstone, we get some other ones, but there are a number of different stories in here that are little like glimpses of something that never became a story. And it'd be cool. Like, imagine like a series of King Kane, you know what I mean? When Kane was a king in like the dawn ages of man, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, then we finally get to the story, which, yeah. Kane was one of the first true men, born in a hostile world of strange ancient beings. In this dawn world of humanity, Kane defied the insane God who created his race, an experiment that had turned out far from the creator's expectations.
I mean, in some ways, it's aligned with Lucifer's rejection of humanity. Like Paradise Lost or something like that. I mean, with not so much that man is like a twisted mockery, but like the way maybe Lucifer saw mankind.
Yeah. Well, it says this demented elder god dabbled at creating a race of mindless creatures whose only existence would be to amuse and delight him. He almost succeeded until Cain rebelled against the stifling paradise and spurred the young race to independent will. He killed his own brother, who sought to oppose his heresy, thus bringing violent death as well as rebellion to the infant mankind. And this is when he was cursed. And what I love is this: for centuries he has wandered from place to place, and wherever he lingers, he brings death and destruction with
Yeah.
him. He is a harbinger of death, a lord of chaos. To tear down, to kill, and destroy is his very nature. For was it not Cain who first introduced murder to a newborn race? This Cain, Ephraim, is the man you have chosen to league yourself with.
Yeah, because initially she thought I think Ephraim thought he was that legendary pirate guy, Kane the Red or whatever the hell his name was. But she didn't expect this level of power from him. And she thought he'd be someone that she could easily manipulate and control.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And I think that in this essentially there's three things going on. One thing, which is something I actually do believe, is that the God of the Judeo-Christian God is like some type of parasitical, like insane God, like entity that I don't necessarily believe he created humanity, but I think I think there's something to that. But I think that there's that aspect to it that Wagner's basically saying that later on people would start worshiping this insane elder god as their god, right? And then so that's like pretty like funny, like if you really think about it, because we think about this is actually deep in the past. So at some point in the future, Cain's walking on actual modern day Earth, which are some of the stories we'll get to that were never published.
Yep.
Like that, basically people are worshiping this insane elder god, and which basically makes like Christianity, Judaism, Islam kind of like Lovecraftian cults in a way. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. I was exactly what I was gonna say, where it's like, this reads almost like we're getting the true history of religion here, of the Christian religion. You know what I mean? It's like, this is really what happened. This is because we have this demon showing Ephraim the origins of man and the origins of this being Cain, and and probably thousands of years even after this story is when theoretically Christianity would rise, and the storytelling and control and manipulation has gone on. So at that point, thousands of years after this, like this concept of God has been revised and lied about and manipulated until the God actually is, in a belief of this cult, a positive force, like an all-powerful being.
But here's what's interesting is he wanted to make man a mindless, thing that would just serve his whims. So, which is essentially what Christianity and and Islam and stuff try to shoot for, is like to be mindless devotees to this God's will. You know what I mean?
That's exactly the point, is that it created the followers of this cult basically are, like automatons. Like they have a set of rules. They stick to these rules because they're afraid of some sort of like, biblical retribution against them. I mean, and even the idea, like the cult of Mithras, wasn't that like thousands of years before the sort of emergence of Jesus Christ, I think too,
Yeah, and they do think that probably helped influence the aspects of the Christian cult.
Yeah, so this is a true story we're reading right now. So
yeah, but it's I think it's kind of combining. Cain is is both the biblical Cain and also Lucifer, but Cain himself, rebel was in a lot of Jewish folklore was actually the son of uh, um, Lilith and Adam, or you know what I mean, or like
Yeah.
Lilith entered into as the spirit entered into Eve, and Satan entered into Adam. Like those are some of the stories. So he's like a child of this kind of satanic Luciferian spirit, and that's why he rebelled against this mindless like false paradise, the Garden of quote unquote Eden. You know what I mean? And but I think he's kind of combining the two stories together in the sense that Cain is basically both Lucifer and the biblical Cain at once. So
Right.
he's.
Yeah, and like Lucifer, he's a fallen character, like a fallen, sort of entity, and now he has to wander the earth, cursed with immortality.
Yeah. And he is a destroyer, but he also, I think, helped create civilization, which is true to the Cain myth. The Cain went to the east of Eden and helped found civilization. So, in the Judeo-Christian worldview, the Abrahamic faiths, civilization is an abomination. You know what I mean? Like you're not supposed to think that much. It's the fallen angels who taught us to, and Cain and evil that taught us to actually build cities and all this types of stuff, right? So I think it's interesting. But Kane's also, he is a Lord of Chaos, which is interesting because that almost makes me think of like Michael Moorcock with like the chaos and order and everything like that.
Man,
So
I need to like start revisiting some of the Moorcock stuff I have. Definitely. We talk about we always I feel like we always talk about Michael Moorcock every now and then on these episodes, and I look over at my collection of the books I have, and I'm like, man, I need to dig at least into some Elric novels or something again real soon.
definitely.
Maybe next
What?
year's reading goals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get those. The one thing that I really like is that the demon says stuff like, "No man can live for centuries and remain altogether human." And it says over later, "Time stands still for him, and everything you hold to be permanent, Cain considers no more than ever-changing phenomena. All that remains permanent for Cain is his own existence, and to make this interminable existence endurable is all that drives him on. His motives are unguessable, his actions unthinkable to human minds, for he lives in a world of flux in which he himself is the only stationary force." I really
So,
like that. Like, it's a very fascinating breakdown of, you know what I mean?
yeah, sounds about right. I mean, he's seen, countries and cities and people come and go, and like the lifespan of a whole civilization is like a blink of an eye to him with his immortality.
Yeah, and I think there's an aspect to it where he himself doesn't feel like time is just kind of, he's an ever-present kind of moment. And there is development in Kane. Like, he does change sometimes as a character, but it's more like he's going through phases. You know what I mean? He doesn't really, his essential character is the same, but he goes through phases. Like, he goes, we've seen this phase where he was marauder and, doing bandits. He'd had his sorcery phase. He had a phase where he actually felt love. I remember like in one of the stories where he says like he forgot what love actually felt like. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah, he has changed, but I don't think it's like a character growth in the sense that most people think it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. So that's the in my opinion, in part two of this saga, this is that moment is like the high point of the whole thing, really, for me.
Yeah, it's awesome. I always love any time we get insight into Kane because I think that Wagner really created a very fascinating character. Part of what's fascinating about him is that you don't ever know what he's gonna do. Like
You know that most likely he'll betray someone that he's, bleeding. Like there's some always an element of betrayal with him, or this kind of amorality, which is kind of his defining, characteristic, really.
and generally something's gonna get destroyed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, there's always destruction and chaos surrounding him too.
But what's funny is that in like I said in Dark Crusade with like the character in that the prophet guy, that was almost too far for
Yeah,
Kane because Kane didn't like cities and stuff being destroyed. He liked cities because there's only a few things he felt like he didn't change as much. You know what I mean? So and watching the prophet like tear down everything, he was like too much chaos for him. You know what I mean?
exactly. So that was a great chapter, Visions of Black Prometheus, and really sick like title for that chapter too.
Yeah. Well, it's like that's why I used titles. I used titles of chapters and stuff from, and even stories from uh, Kane stuff is like my for like the temporary titles for all the Black Flame
Totally,
altar
dude.
stuff, and
Hell yeah.
stuck with the one. I still kept one song called Night Winds because it's still related to the lyrics.
Yeah, no,
It's like
that's
a little
that's
nod. Yeah.
so now we find Kane preparing for battle. They're trying to figure out when the Imperial fleet is going to arrive. He acknowledges that they are most likely outnumbered, and Ephrael tells him that she's got some intel that's coming from her inhuman cohorts, and that she's got a secret weapon which she can't use this time around though. He's going to have to do this on his own apparently.
Just fish people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But she can't reveal that just yet. So Kane is left to his own wits to prevail in this battle,
Yeah, fish people or something.
or
Maybe
something like that. Yeah,
Kraken. There's
yeah.
something under that water. Who
Some
knows?
some deep sea entity or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She trying to bring up Cthulhu at some point. Yeah. So basically, we get all the kind of battle preparations, and as always with Wagner, it gets pretty. Wagner loved writing about battles, so but he's very technical in some ways. He's very like tried to be very like realistic, just like in Dark Crusade and even in Bloodstone with the battles. You know what I mean? Like it's everything. I like that because it feels very thought out the way
Yeah,
that the battles are fought, and it makes sense. Like he definitely seemed like he was basing off actual military history. You know what I mean?
yeah, definitely a lot of research went into this for sure. And Wagner and Howard, they write action perfectly, if you ask me, man. They're some of the best action writers out there.
Yeah, for them it's them and David Gemmell. There's like
Yeah, David Gamble, definitely. Yep.
yeah.
Now that I'm familiar with his work.
Yeah, like the battles and fights are like awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so basically what Kane has done is that even though they got shittier boats for the most part and less guys, Kane has devised, of course, you know, through not necessarily trickery, but just through being, you know, smart, I guess. He's basically created these catapult boats that will essentially shoot Greek, what they used to call Greek fire, I believe, is essentially napalm.
Yeah.
Uh, but what they would do is it would they put it into the catapult, and then when it hit the other side, a lot of times, like either they would set it on fire before, but a lot of times they had it down to the point that when it struck the other thing, like the mixture of the chemicals would catch on fire. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
I think that's what this sounds like because they think it's just catapults at first, and all of a sudden, like it bursts into flames in front of them. So I think he's using like um, yeah, essentially medieval napalm. So
I would say that if you remember in Game of Thrones, there's that scene where they have that green stuff where they like, use that in a similar way.
yeah, it's the same type of
Kind
thing.
of same
Yeah.
principle. So it's like it sort of evens the playing field between both forces and actually gives the advantage to Kane's people because they have this technology that they're using.
Yeah, because when they joined battle, Kane basically, they set fire to a bunch of Lage's ships, and Lage's basically trying to get them to go in faster to get past the range of the catapults. And at that point, once I think they've destroyed a bunch of Kane has both regular catapult ships and ships with the Greek fire or whatever, and they did some pretty heavy damage on, including I think disabling Lage's ship at one point, right? So
Yeah.
uh, now, but then once it gets closer, then it gets down to like brass tacks of actual like just like sword hand to hand combat,
Yeah. So the two flagships ram each other, and then now it's on. We got like some sword play and fighting, and
Yeah, and Kane's like, picture this. Kane is, of course, like in his all black armor, as always. He always does that, and then he's swinging a two-handed sword in one hand, and then a shorter sword, a normal like long sword, in his right hand. That's what Kane's doing, because he always is using like a two-handed weapon in one hand, like 'cause I think it was in Bloodstone. He was fighting with like a giant two-handed axe in one hand.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So sick. So Lages and Kane meet, and you know, Lages is a good fighter, excellent technical swordsman, but he just is no match for Kane, really.
Yeah, and Kane does eventually get him in the shoulder or in his arm. So Lages drops his sword, and then essentially to get away from Kane, Lages tries to back up and ends up falling off the ship, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So he's in the water now.
yeah, and before Kane can go make sure that Lages dies, he gets beset by I guess kind of Lages' guard in a way. So then, eventually though they kill everybody. He's basically, well, he's probably dead, but he doesn't know for sure. Which wouldn't be the first time this has happened to Kane. Like I said, this is the storyline that reminds me of Dark Crusade, because that's the same thing that happened with what's his name, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, but of course, Lages is almost run over by one of his ships because he's in the path of one of the waves. They throw down a ladder. He climbs out of the water, and they save him, and they sail away.
And I think there's only two ships to get away from Kane.
Yeah, there's only two ships that escape.
But when Kane was smart though, because what he did, yeah, they destroyed some ships, but he really tried to make sure the guys captured as many ships as they could so that they could replace the ones they lost, but also get better ships, because now they got the better Imperial ships to add to their fleet. So
Smart.
yeah.
Yeah. The stuff with Altramus is funny. Alramus.
Yeah, the guy who was fucking Abel and now
Yeah,
been
he's like,
replaced by Kane.
yeah. So he's like wounded, and Kane attacks another ship, hoping that Alramus gets killed, but he's like he's still hanging in there.
Yeah, Kane was like, he's too good of a fighter. And then as he's like killing people, he starts thinking about, like, I can't just kill him because he's too popular. So
Yeah, people rally around him because he's wounded and he's like doing well in the fight and everything.
Yeah. So yeah, he's disappointed, but then then he thinks, well, if I go and try to save him, then that'll make the Palanites like me better. So he ends up actually trying to save Almaris in the end for kind of like edging his way a little bit popular, because that us ultimately we're not given this insight, but Kane is essentially, I think, edging his way to basically take over Palin and dispose of Ephraim. I think that's his ultimate goal. He hasn't said anything about it yet, but I think
That's a fair assumption.
it's just, I mean, it seems most likely for Kane, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's nobody he's so far in all the stories I've read, he's not betrayed somebody that he could betray. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly, yeah, just like a total reptile with his
Yeah, I love this one. Calmly and deliberately, Kane slashed through the Imperial forces, his senses inflamed with the rush of battle and the ecstasy of killing. Much as he longed to lose himself in an orgy of death and carnage, Kane kept his bloodlust in check, and it was intellect, not emotion, that governed his actions. I just love whenever Wagner writes like Kane in battle, Kane just sounds like a fucking badass, like just
yeah.
and kind of scary too. Like you could definitely get the feeling he is a lord of chaos and death, and yeah.
when we recently talked about the Northmen, some of the battle scenes in the Northmen were pretty awesome. Uh, and it made me wonder, we always go every episode we talk about Eggers and how he should do like a Kane movie or something like that.
Yeah, like particularly that battle, that first big battle in um when they go into the camp, and him and the other berserkers go over and like it's like that one long tracking shot where he's just killing everybody. Like that would be sick if like they're just following Kane. 'Cause he just
Dude,
like
like
cuts people in half and like you know what I mean?
the scene where he snatches that spear, they
Yeah.
they throw the spear, he just fucking grabs it and throws
And
it
then
back. I'm like,
yeah.
it's like so badass, man.
Yeah, that's kind of I would love to see something like that, but with Kane like just wading his way through like
Yeah.
yeah, like just brutal as fuck.
We were talking also about other Howard characters, and we talked about Worms of the Earth, the Bram McMorn story, and how that would be perfect for like an Eggers treatment because it's a horror story basically, and it also takes place in history, and we know Eggers loves doing historical period pieces.
That would actually probably be one more perfect Howard things for him to cover to do, either that or Solomon Kane because they're both
Yeah,
like in time. But Brad McMorton, I mean, that would be really sick because yeah, it's set in Roman Britain, um, and it's got the horror aspects to it. So I'd
it's
be really
very
interested. I'd be really interested to see how he'd bring to life the worms of the earth. But they're
yeah,
not really supposed to be seen too much, or they're kind of in the shadows, right? So
exactly. But that he's the king of atmosphere, Robert Eggers. So that would be I would trust him to see them but not see them. You know what I mean?
particularly in the scene when Bran goes underground to get the black stone, and it'll just be a torch in the dark, and Eggers likes to do natural light, so it would literally probably be all black, just a torch, and you'd be hearing the like things like crawling around Bran in the darkness. You know what I mean?
When I watched Nosferatu last year, I was thinking about Worms of the Earth actually, because it was just how atmospheric the castle scene was and how, with the lighting. And I was thinking like this would be like the perfect director to make a Worms of the Earth film.
Yeah, it would be awesome. And like
Um,
we were talking about, we should have Anna Taylor-Joy play the Witch Queen. I mean, if the witch, the what's her name? The witch,
oh, I forgot her name, but yeah,
um,
the
I forgot. Yeah,
yeah, he has to make or not Kane. Brian McMorn has to,
get
bed
it
her,
on.
and
Yeah,
she wants to know what it's like to be with a true king.
yeah. And although he could go totally grotesque for that character, but I kind of always I prefer to have like kind of sexy and creepy at the same time. You know what I mean? That's more what I'd like to see.
And she has a very otherworldly look to her too. So she could be some non-human elder being.
Yeah, you could do a little bit, just a little bit of makeup or something to give her kind of a little bit more unhuman look, but
Yeah.
she has the kind of like bone structure that would be perfect for something like that. Yeah.
And we've got Henry Cavill as Bran.
That's what I was thinking because,
Yeah.
I just think of like what he does with like when he was like Geralt. Um, I think he'd be perfect for Bran because he's definitely good at the kind of broody character. Like Bran is very broody,
Yeah.
but the way that he looks is very much how I picture Bran, like this kind of big like warrior guy, black hair. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like.
And he's a British guy, so he's got the sort of the look like you're saying, and he's a good actor too, and he can
Yeah.
portray that very well, I think. Who would Willem Dafoe play? Like one of the Romans, maybe?
Wouldn't it be funny if Willem Dafoe was like the Roman general who's
Yeah.
like, having a guy crucified at the
Yeah,
start
dude.
that who goes insane from seeing the worms of the earth?
I think that would be Willem
Yeah.
Dafoe playing that character, the
Yeah.
Roman general. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the main Titus Sula, the main kind of bad guy in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect. He
See
could play
now,
that or he could play Bram McMorn's like kind of older like Gorm. He could play
okay,
that character too. Yeah.
okay. I
Yeah.
like him more as Titus Sula though. I think that because he would have better dialogue, I think.
Yeah, and he could be if he did Gorm, he'd be too close to like the character he played in Northman. But if he played Tyasula, he could kind of tap into like he could be like
His
a
chops. Yeah.
kind of like an asshole and like
Yeah.
very like pretentious and like
Yeah.
be cool. Yeah.
I would love to see that. See, there you go. We got it. We have it
And
cast.
and
So
then at the end he'd be all insane after seeing you know what I mean? And then Brandon has to kill him like yeah, just to take him out of his misery, you know?
it sounds good, doesn't it, guys? Like this movie sound fucking awesome.
Yeah, and I think it'd be sick. And just particularly like how much you could make the whole scene scary like going in underground. I mean, you'd probably need to do a few things to extend it a little bit because I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a short story. So yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I'm sure there's ways to kind of extend things in a cool way, you know what I mean? Like maybe give him one more task to do because in the story he can which we are going to be covering soon on Soul and Ox, like he basically just goes and finds the witch lady and then she tells him where to get the black stone. Like it might be interesting if maybe he has to do like another ritual or go through like some dark woods or some shit to try to get to the witch lady or something, like something where there's
Yeah.
like some danger,
His
that's probably what I would add,
I have like three ideas because since we messaged about this, I've been thinking about it quite a bit. So like we can have more of a like part of it could be some sort of exposition about Bran, like his because like if you think about it, unless you know who the character is, suddenly you're in this world of ancient Britain with the Romans occupying it. So who's Bran? Who is he?
I Yeah, but I think it'd be cool to start it off in the way the story starts off where, we don't know that it's Bran McMorn when he's watching the guy get like crucified and stuff.
Right.
And then maybe we can get a little bit of that backstory somehow.
But the backstory would be told like almost like as a flashback, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
All
Yeah.
the things that I'm actually mentioning would be flashbacks because I even think go deeper into because the Blackstone comes up in a lot of other stories. So that sort of when he's down there with the with on Anya Taylor Joy, there could be a flashback of her describing like through the eons, like where the origin of the Blackstone or something like that.
See that would be cool and or like when he goes to her cottage or whatever and yeah, she does the thing to yeah, go through the whole history of it and that would be very in line actually with a lot of the comic book type of Howard stuff. Like that's
Yeah,
something that Roy Thomas would probably do, you know what I mean? Or what the current writer, I forget his name, he's doing Conan and everything.
Jim Zug, I think his name is
Jim Zub, yeah, like
Zub.
you know, I think that would be pretty cool because then you could also show scenes of like Bran as Cole and then as Conan. You know what I mean? Like you could go through because he's kind of like the reincarnation of these older characters. You know what I mean?
And then it opens up the Karl and Conan movies to come afterwards.
Exactly. And that you could also get into that kind of millennia long war between the worms and humanity and everything. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's I also feel like like how Howard loves Lovecraft. The Worms though is more of a Mackin sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like Mackin through Lovecraft it's because they're like serpent-esque, right?
Yeah,
So they're
right.
they're
Like
they're like serpent people, I guess you
yeah,
could say. Yeah. Like they're like the descendants of, in Call,
the Kingdom of Shadows, the Shadow Kingdom rather. Like there's that yeah,
there's like the
those
lizard
the
people who
lizard
take on,
people,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Which was like essentially the what gave birth to all those like funny conspiracies about like
Oh yeah.
yeah, lizard people taking the form of like, but
What's that guy's name? The dude who like made a career out of writing about those.
I can't remember.
He was also one of the Anunnaki like Planet X guys.
Yeah, is it Striken or I forget. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not important.
But yeah, the but but so like the worms are, I think, like descendant, like these kind of like fallen, like decayed descendants of those people, of those, right? Like, um, and and then they decay even further. There's a later story where we see one like a little bit further in the future where it's become totally bestial, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
But
I love that.
yeah, but it's yeah, because there's a whole bunch of Howard stories all dealing with, you know, the Black Stone, which ironically is different from the Black Stone of the story of the Black Stone, because it's like a different, but it's like related. It's like a similar type of material, but there's like this Black Stone that they worship because technically the Black Stone is like the top of a tower or
Yeah,
something, right?
tower,
So
buried
yeah,
tower structure. Yeah.
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 Uh, but when you get into like the worms of the earth and chil Children of the Night and some of the other ones like that, I forget the other stories. Usually there's somebody who has like a past life regression and goes back and like there's like two or three of the stories that are like a modern day guy getting hit on the head or something and having like a past
Oh
life
yeah.
regression
Yeah.
where he goes back and fights the worms of the earth. And you'll see the Blackstone those. And there's one that's like set in the old west where it's like in these like mounds in, I think it's called the Horror in a Mound or something like that. That is set in like the Southwest, like in like Texas, where there's these like Indian like mounds that people thought were Indian mounds, but Howard's like, no, they're like the mounds of the serpent people, essentially.
Those are all in, there's that one collection of the heart that came out a few years ago, the horror stories of Robert E. Howard.
Yeah, the
And
Delray one. Yeah.
it has all those stories in there collected in one volume. So it's kind of cool to go through them.
Yeah, and has Worms of the Earth as
Worms of
well.
the Earth is in that, yeah.
Yeah. The yeah, I love all that shit. And you could totally bring in all that into a movie adaptation. But I do think that the only person I would want to see do a movie adaptation of Warm as the Earth is Eggers. Pretty much. That's the only person.
Yeah. Robert, if you're out there listening to this, man, like, definitely consider doing a Bran McMorn movie. And later on, Call and Conan. And why not Solomon Kane too?
No one, not all of them.
And why not Kane?
Yeah. He's like the guy that I would like to see to do that kind of stuff because it's just like I don't. It's kind of the same feeling I had when with Nosferatu. I was like, he's literally the only person who I would want to do a remake of Nosferatu. Like,
Yeah.
period. There's no other director today who I would. Any other director, I would just be like, ah, that's gonna be shit. But with him, I was excited. You
He's definitely a Robert E. Howard fan, though, I think.
know?
Eggers.
He's a fan of Conan. I know he's a fan of Conan the Barbarian, the movie, and I think he's a fan of Howard as well, because there's definitely references to even some Conan stuff in the Northman, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, um, which is he wants to do a Conan movie. I mean, he said that was part of like what got him to do Northman is because how much he wanted to do a Conan movie.
Dude. But it's funny though. Like I would love to see him do a Conan movie, but I really, really would love him to do this fucking Worms in the Earth thing that we're discussing. Something like that would be
Well, I think
amazing.
it'd be perfect because it's like a horror,
Yeah.
you know. So that you could tap into that horror aspect and um, which Conan is horror. It would be cool to see a movie of Conan where it's more horror based, like you get more of the sorcery aspects, right? Like
Mhm.
um, that would be cool,
Yeah.
like because that's one thing we haven't really gotten. I mean, there's some horror in the Barbarian, but you know, uh, that definitely not in the Destroyer or the 2011 movie, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, guys, anyone out there who doesn't know what we're talking about right now, it's like Robert E. Howard, obviously he wrote Conan as well. That's his most famous character, but he's got a slew of other characters that he does. And where Bran McMorn is one, King Call, Cormac McCart, Solomon Kane, Turlo O'Brien. There's like tons and tons and tons of material out there. All was mostly published in Weird Tales, and also Argosy, which is like another sort of pulp magazine that came out back then. And a lot of this stuff you can get in two places actually. There's like the Del Rey books that are they're not in print anymore, but you can still get them on Amazon. And then there's the Robert E. Howard Foundation is publishing a lot of material too these days, and I think that's called Robert E. Howard Foundation. And there's a volume that came out called Swords of the North, which actually have the Cormac McCart stories in them. So
Yeah, I need to buy that finally because
yeah,
I need to get all those stories.
yeah, there's
The
not that many of them, so they couldn't really collect them into a volume somewhere else.
No, I was kind of surprised they didn't include them in the Bram McMorton collection though, like the Del Rey editions.
Yeah, because they both exist in like ancient Britain. You know, one guy's a Celt and the other one's a Pict. So
Yeah, the yeah, I think that Cormac's just a little bit later or earlier. I'm not sure which direction he is
yeah, I'm not
in
clear on the
time
timeline.
because if Bran is in the maybe actually Cormac is earlier than Bran because Bran would be in like the Roman period and
Yeah,
Cormac is in I think he's like a Celtic period, but they kind of overlap in Ireland in particular. So
yeah. I
I'm not
really
sure.
don't know actually when time in the timeline where they exist. So yeah,
Yeah, but there is a Cormac mentioned in Bran, uh, where they say he's and in Worms of the Earth they say, oh, let's have our friend Cormac from a different tribe, uh, you know, attack the Romans to get to distract them essentially. So maybe they're existing at the same time and they're
could be.
buddies.
But then again,
But
Cormac is a pretty common name though.
yeah, there's a few
There's
there's
a
a few
few of them.
core, but you could easily combine them if you wanted to, if.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a few Cormacs that show up because there's a Cormac. And before he did Conan, there's one of those past life regression stories. There's one of the characters is Conan, but I think he's a Celt in it.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even Conan is like a you know Celtic sort of name.
Well, I think that the Cimmerians are supposed to be like the modern version of them is the Celts. I think, right?
Yeah.
Or the
So that
Celts.
makes sense that the name Conan would have like came down through the ages, really, and you know,
The thing that's kind of funny is that where the like the is are they so the pics like that we get in uh um Worms of the Earth like they're more like historical pics which are actually seem to be kind of different from the pics that are in his other stuff. So
oh
that's one
well,
funny thing. Yeah.
yeah, like the Picts, like historical Picts, those are the ones who like painted themselves blue, when they went into battle.
Yeah, they were
More like in
Scottish.
Scottish, yeah,
Yeah.
Scottish. The way that Howard writes Picts, though, is they're more like these like kind of swarthy, maybe like Mediterranean people, like Moroccans or something like that. I don't know. It's like weird how he does that, though.
Well, they're almost like well then when you read Beyond the Black River though, they're almost like Native
Native
American.
Americans, yeah, that's the vibe.
It's
Yeah,
yeah, it's very strange, but
yeah.
I don't think he had a clear idea. That was one of the things that Lovecraft said sometimes Howard the danger of Howard like choosing like things from history would occasionally create issues like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Like
totally.
choosing names from history. But I mean, I guess Bran is like the modern descendant of like the Picts. I guess the Picts at some point like made their way to. I guess in his thing they ended up in Scotland, which might be so basically like I think what it's supposed to be is that they're kind of like supposed to be like which it might be somewhat true that they're part of the because what the original settlers of Britain were probably like the original British were probably Mediterranean type people. So I think that's part of why he developed that idea that because It's pretty much like you can see the trail that they went by they make the megalithic people. They built these megalithic like stone circles, and you can follow their trail from like Turkey through Anatolia into Greece up into like Italy and Spain, and then finally into Britain. You see these Stonehenge like things, and they pretty much think they're all the same type of people. So the Celts came in later. So the original British were probably as the Celts came in, they kind of pushed these original British into different areas, and then later on, when the Anglo-Saxons and stuff came in, they pushed the Celts into the same areas. So then, like eventually, the original British and Celtic populations kind of became synonymous in a way. You know what I mean? But
Right. Yeah.
probably, but with like the primarily original British population being particularly the Picts up there and north, some it's kind of interesting. So I think that's where Howard got the idea from that why
Yeah.
he's kind of depicted them that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That makes, in some ways, I guess it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but like as like the descendants of, I mean, it's been millennia since. If you think about it, really, like with Atlantis and like the Picts and that, like they're very much like, and Bran is supposed to be like the like this kind of like reincarnation of. I guess he's less like a
Thule.
reincarnate. Yeah, like yeah, Brule, yeah.
Yeah. The
He's,
Brule, the spear slayer.
yeah, so I guess he's less because Cole is definitely Conan. Like I think the Sumerians come from the Volusians, right? So like.
The Volusia that was like from the Kull era. I don't know, man. That's a good question. I always
Because
assumed the Sumerians were farther north though than Volusia. Volusia, I always associated that with being like Rome.
well, the I believe that they after the fall of Atlantis, they became like they descended back into barbarism and then traveled or something. I think that's what it says in Hyborian Age, but I
Oh,
forget
okay.
because Velusia is Kull, right? Kull is
Yeah.
a Velusian, yeah.
The king. Kull is an Atlantean.
Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah,
Yeah, but
Velusia.
he's the king of Volusia. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's king of Velusia, but he's an Atlantean who are
I
barbarians. I
mean,
think that, yeah,
it's the same
yeah,
kind of trajectory that Conan
yeah,
had, where he
yeah.
became the Aquilonian king.
Yeah, so I think the Atlanteans, sorry, the Atlanteans were the Sumerians descended from
Yeah.
Atlanteans.
That's what I
Yeah,
was yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that makes sense to me.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, we'll get more brand stuff on when we cover
I
more
feel like
videos.
that's
Yeah,
like the next these other stories and characters is like the next logical step after we finish up the Wagner stuff, I think.
yeah, getting into.
It's like we're already halfway, talking about doing it anyway. So
Yeah, I mean that's the thing we can't. The next like series can be just let's just do Howard since I never really got. I always wanted to do the Howard podcast, but at this point I'm kind of like maybe just do a new series. It's just Howard.
yeah.
We'll just do Howard as part of both our podcasts, and we'll just go from there. You know what I
Well,
mean? Like, and
and like
we can keep the name that I had with Savage World of Robert E. Howard. That was my name for the
that's fucking great, dude.
yeah.
I love
So
that. Yeah.
why don't we just make that podcast series for both Everyone Black
Fuck
and
yeah, dude.
Sonox? Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And like I've been like really trying to motivate myself to go back and reread a lot of these stories, but I always get hung up on reading some other thing before I get into it.
Well, and I just started rereading Conan again, like on the audiobooks not too long ago. So like
Yeah.
a few weeks ago, like I was like, I only listened to a couple of stories. So, but because I just kind of felt like it. But yeah, and we there's plenty of stuff there. There's a
Oh
lot
yeah.
to Howard doing Howard. We'll have an unlimited. I mean, that'll take us for a long time to get through. So
And for the most part, they're all short stories, really. I mean, everything's like could be done like we can do in one episode per short story. It's not like with the novels here. There's a couple of novels, but you know, it's like a little bit more digestible for listeners, I think.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the only novel is Hour of the Dragon, which we could probably cover in like 2 episodes because it's maybe there's a lot that happens. It's packed. It might be 3 episodes because there's a lot that happens in each section, but it's
And
only like
maybe
200 pages. So
and maybe we can tie in the since we're finishing up Wagner, we can throw the Wagner pastiche novels in there too.
yeah, we could do that. I definitely we can wait to do the the pastiche for Wagner until we do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because if it's the savage world of Robert E. Howard,
Yeah.
he's a contributor to that savage world,
Yeah.
Karl Edward Wagner. So
Yeah.
though he's not, these stories weren't written by Howard, they were written by a contributor. And also, Wagner was like one of the instrumental guys in keeping his Robert E. Howard's work in print for a while too.
Definitely. Yeah, and actually with that idea of doing a podcast about it, my whole concept was like after someday you finish like the Conan stuff, like to uh also get into some of the other things like the pastiche novels and
Yeah,
some stuff about the comics and so yeah, it's like I like that. It's a whole world of Robert E. Howard and we got
yeah,
tons of stuff. There's so you can do Conan and Cole, and what we could do is do it in the order of the characters. So like do Cole and Bran. I can't remember if Bran came before Cole or vice versa. We'd have to look at the
oh, I
dates,
don't
but
know. I don't know how
yeah.
the publishing history is like.
But
I don't even know.
we could even just kick it off of Worms of the Earth because I do think it came out. I think it came out. It was before Conan. I know that. So
And that's one of my favorite Howard stories. Just FYI. I mean, I love that story.
yeah, it's one of my favorite too. So
Yeah,
we'll kick it off with that one and then do Cole and then um I mean yeah, Solomon Kane was before Conan as well, but
yeah,
you know we can tease everybody before we get into Conan finally, like and force people to listen to it because Solomon Kane is awesome too. So
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I like this idea, and then we'll have all the horror stories to cover that we
dude,
haven't done yet.
that's right.
We can even redo the ones we did a while back, like 'cause we did Wolf's Head and Blackstone, but we can just skip those or we can just redo them.
Yeah, maybe we
Yeah,
redo 'em.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like this. So that's gonna be what we're gonna do next.
Hell yeah. All right, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time. Take care.
I am.
So we're back with another episode of Darkness Weaves, and we're moving along through the titled novel Darkness Weaves.
Darkness
All right,
sweeps.
yeah, yeah. Let me do that one again.